So at this point, we've all heard about remote ID, the technology that allows users to track and identify our drones while we're flying. And although that's a very controversial subject, and we could talk about it in another video, some pilots have no option but to comply with this rule. Think about if you're a commercial drone operator or business owner, or maybe you're a freelance pilot and you want to get some gigs. Maybe the studios may not hire you if you're not remote ID compliant. You get the picture. At this point, it's your livelihood at stake. Now, if you're also a recreational pilot, you just want to comply with this rule, well, this is the video for you. So the module that we're looking at today is the FliteTest Easy ID, and this one caught my attention due to its small size, its simplicity, and its overall feature set. Now, this thing is really tiny and small, and it's said to weigh around 10 grams. So let's see if that's true. And as you can see, it's 10 grams on the dot. So this thing is relatively light and compact. Now the Easy ID features a 20 by 20 mounting hole solution, so you can actually install this on your flight controller stack, or maybe in the back here with your VTX. Now I've gone one step further and 3D printed a case for this actual module, so I can actually protect my module and install it on other drones like my DJI drone right here. So we'll take a close look at this later in the installation part of this video. Now the first thing you'll notice about the Easy ID is this GPS antenna. Now some of the other modules on the market require the drone to provide GPS information to the module. Now in the case of my drone right here, I don't have a GPS antenna on here. So in that case, you'll have to buy a GPS antenna installed to your drone and have the information be provided to your module. Now that can be pretty inexpensive for one drone, but if you have more than one drone, that can add up pretty quickly. Now the best part about the Easy ID is that it has its built-in GPS antenna on here, and this is all self-contained. In fact, if your drone is not equipped with the GPS antenna, this can provide information as far as telemetry and coordinates to your flight controller, giving your drone the ability to have return to home or GPS rescue. Now below the GPS antenna is this port right here, and this is the main way to power on this Easy ID module. Now this module here is good between 1 and 8S power source. So that's a pretty broad range, guys, between 1 and 8S. So you can put this on your tiny whoops and have remote ID on your 1S drones if you want to. I don't know if you want to do that, but that sounds pretty extreme. Now FliteTest has made this really easy with these included harnesses in the package in here. You have 3 different harnesses here, and they can do multiple things. The first one here is the battery connection. This plugs into the module right here. You can connect this to a battery source. The second one that we have here is one that goes into your receiver, or the receiver for a fixed wing aircraft, like a servo lead. And this goes into your module, this goes into your servo or your receiver, and then you'll have power to your module. So really good for fixed wing aircraft. And the last one here is probably the most popular one here. This one goes to a balance lead for a multiple S battery. So this goes into your battery, and the other end goes into here. Now FliteTest have gone the extra step and included reverse polarity protection on this module. Now that's really handy in case you do mess up your connection to your battery. And I have first-hand experience with this because while testing this initially, I did get the polarity incorrect. As you can see right here, these JST connections, these are actually PH 2.0 connectors, and they fit really nice in here. So since this is good for 1 to 8S, I did try this with a 1S battery. And sure enough, if you take a closer look at these harnesses, they're actually opposite of what comes from your 1S battery. So in my case here, I did have to repin one of my batteries to do a test here today, and I'll be using this battery here, and as you can see, it works out pretty good with this battery here. If you did use a traditional battery here, then it's not gonna work because the terminals are reversed. I wish FliteTest could have just the standard, direction for these PH 2.0 plugs, but they are correct for their respective harnesses. Just follow red to red, black to black, and you should be fine. On the top here, you have a LED light for the status of this module, and we'll talk about that a little bit later once we power this on, but pretty much you have a red light as it acquires satellites, and then it turns green once it has a fix on this module. On the back here, you have all the circuit boards and the battery here for the GPS module. So it's pretty straightforward, very simple, and not too complex. Okay, so let's talk about mounting solutions for this Easy ID module. Now, remote ID is not only for FPV drones, it's for any aircraft that flies in the National Airspace Systems. Now, because of that, we'll be using two drones for today's example. Today we have an FPV drone as well as a traditional camera drone right here. Now, we'll start off with the FPV drone here, and this is the Nazgul 5V2. And this is the perfect example or perfect candidate for remote ID. And that's because this one here weighs over 250 grams. It has the ability to carry a full-size action camera for cinema filming, i.e. 107 work, and this one doesn't have a GPS built into it. So it's the perfect example or candidate for a remote ID module like this. Now, initially I wanted to mount this on the back of this drone right here and just zip tie or use a double side tape. And that would work pretty well. And I said before, I actually thought about using this balance lead here. Because we do have one already from the factory here, this harness on here, then this will be a more viable option. Now, you do have the ability to wire this straight to your flight controller, and that will give you GPS coordinates towards your flight controller, as I said before, and that will also provide power to this module. Because I'm using this for multiple drones, and we'll talk about that a little bit later, then I'm just gonna temporarily mount it right here. Now, I did go the extra mile and print this 3D mounted case for it, so now I can mount this in the back here, put some double-sided tape or Velcro on the bottom. I have a more clean and compact package here with my remote ID module. And that's probably what I'll do if I do fly this drone for part 107. Now, for the camera drone, it's pretty simple. I wouldn't suggest you mount this bare board to the actual surface of your drone here. In my case, I am going to use the same case as well. It's flat, has a nice surface on here, and I can just put a double-sided tape or Velcro at the bottom and then put the module in here. And as you can see, the props get pretty close to it, but it's not going to touch. Now, this looks pretty nice and clean, and this should work very, very well. Now, the second issue we have to figure out is how to get this thing powered, because you can't really tap into these proprietary battery leads. Now, the Spark here has these contacts on here, so technically you could, but there's no other way to get the power source from these batteries, not like a traditional drone where you have contacts and flight control and balance leads everywhere. So that's not gonna be an option. And that's where the flexibility of this module comes in. Because it's good for 128S, guess what I'm gonna be using? I'll be using a 1S battery source to power this entire thing. There it goes. So this fits in really nice, very, very clean, guys. And finally, you have the cap or cover for it, and this goes right over the top here. You have a hole here so you can see the status light from your LED. So really, really thoughtful of this. Now, they also make multiple forms or styles of this cover. I just went with the FT here for FliteTest. There it is. There's your little box. Now, if you're gonna hardwire this to, say, the flight controller of your traditional FPV drone, you also have a slit here so these wires can come out and go to your flight controller. So they thought about everything as they designed this. To power this up, I just use my 1S battery source, attach it to the top, and plug it right in there. Now, before we go ahead and test this out, to make this all work, you have to register both your module and your drone with the FAA, as well as associate your remote ID module with your specific drone. Now, if you're gonna fly this for recreational purposes, you can actually bounce or move your remote ID module from drone to drone. But if you're gonna fly it for 107, then you do have to associate and mount one module per drone. So in this case, we will mount this to the DJI Spark. This is registered, as well as my Spark is registered, hence the reason why I have this tape here covering the actual registration number. So let's go outside and see how this Easy ID works. All right, guys, we're outside here. I have my mic in my hand because I got to put this drone on here. I have my DJI drone right here. Interesting. All right, so I just connected the Easy ID module. It was red, now it's green. So I'm under a tree here and it got GPS lock, and you can see it right here on the phone. And here I am right here. So we're gonna put the drone on the actual pad and see how it works. Okay, so the Easy ID is on the ground. We have a lock. Right here it tells you all the information for your drone. So let's scroll up here. It shows you the strength, which is the DBM, the Bluetooth. Last seen ago, less than 1 second ago. So this one has the Bluetooth technology in here, so it refreshes really quickly, opposed to the Wi-Fi version. It was seen 2 minutes ago, as we know here. And here's the status, the heading, the track, distance, and the takeoff height, and all that good stuff right here. We're gonna also blur this location out of here. All right, so this looks all good, guys. Let's take this off. I'm gonna put this in the phone holder right here, so I can glance at it once in a while. And let's take this thing off, see how this thing here works. All right, so I haven't used this thing in a long time here. We are in the air. All right, let us go. Let's go a little higher here. Take a look at this. I haven't flown this drone in so long, but this is a pretty nice location on here. And let's see how far we can go with this little old school drone here. And let's see if it updates on my Easy ID. Let's see if I can screen record this here for you guys as well. I don't know if it's updating, to be honest with you. Let's see here, keep going here. You can see the beauty out here. I have this thing in automatic mode. All the birds. Yeah, guys playing frisbee out here, frisbee golf, or golf frisbee. It's interesting though because so this is not the benefits, but the drawbacks to having an old drone. Technology isn't great. It still says I have one drone around, but okay, now it drew it. It took a while to update, but now it's right there. So that looks like it's accurate. Let's turn this around. I'm gonna put it in sport mode so we can get back here a little bit sooner and see if it actually changes. So the red dot is the drone. And there it goes, it's hauling ass. So it's doing a pretty decent job. And there he goes. A little bit of weak signal. Looks pretty good. I want to see the altitude and see if this is all correct. All right, altitude says 36 meters. We are at 85 feet. So I'll have to convert that to meters, obviously, and see if that's accurate. Distance is 124 meters away. And this is showing that we are 700 feet away, 709 feet away. Pretty nice. The heading is all there. I don't know if there's heading information that can be shown there. And let's see if it can track me again. Let's go back into sport mode and see if that tracks me. And there it goes again. I can see my spark in the air. It stopped. It's just hovering now, which is good. That's where it is. Let's go backward again and see how that looks. It's doing a pretty, I mean, I can track it, I can see it. I can see my drone here, that looks good. It's still not centering, so it's not updating as quickly as I want it to, at least with this app. I do have a, yes, that was 26 seconds ago. All right, so last seen 36 seconds ago. Let's get a little closer. I have a low battery warning here on my drone. Let's see the accuracy of this auto land on this drone here. Let's see where it is. It's gonna go back up. Let's take a look over here. Ah, close but no cigar. So we're back here. We have our DBM strength. First seen, I guess the further it goes away, the slower the update or refresh rate on here. I think the most I saw was like 26 seconds or so. So far this looks good. It's secure. The module looks pretty fine. No issues here at all. Let's power this down. All right, so you can see a good snapshot of what this thing is looking at. You can see my actual track where I flew the drone, and it doesn't look too bad. Looks pretty accurate. It's just that it doesn't update and refresh as quickly as I would want. But besides that, it looks pretty decent, guys. This thing here is complete. It has all the information that you would ever want and need from a remote ID module. So I'm okay with this. I'm content with this. Let's head back to the studio, go back indoors, and then I'll give you my final impressions on the Easy ID remote ID module. Okay, so we're back indoors and I have some pretty interesting results from my Easy ID module. Now, first of all, this thing fitted pretty nicely on my test drone today. As you can see, it fits right here on this Velcro, and there's no issues here with propellers touching. And using the Velcro or a double-sided tape is a viable option mounting this module on your drones. It makes it very portable, and you can swap it from drone to drone. So I highly recommend using maybe a double-sided tape or even some Velcro, and that works really, really well. Now, once I initially powered this module, it took between 8 to 10 minutes to get a fix or to acquire satellites. Now, subsequent power-ups took a lot less, between 30 and 45 seconds. So it did improve very significantly, and the antenna on this is really, really good, guys. I can even get a lock indoors. So no issues trying to get a lock or fix with this module. Now, this leads me to the software portion of this test. Now, I used 2 tests to conduct my test over a few days. The first one was the actual FliteTest app, and the second was the drone scanner app. Now, the first one, the FliteTest app, is pretty cool. Now, this one here requires you to register to actually use it, and I think, or I thought at the time, I still do think that that was a bit excessive or a little bit too much, because this is a publicly broadcasted module, and I don't think that you should have to register to use the app just to see a location of a remote ID. We're talking about email address, your name, and even your phone number. Now, yes, using the app, you can have permission to use your phone directory or your phone book, but I just think that's a little bit too much. Now, having said that, due to the nature of the login process, you do get a more customizable experience while using the app. We're talking about flight logs, Find My Drone, and even products on the FliteTest website related to remote ID and FPV. So in that sense, that's pretty cool. Now, once in the app, it shows your module, the identification associated with your module, its location, and the distance away from you. So in that sense, it works pretty well. Very simple, but it works. Now, moving on to the drone scanner app, it was a totally different experience. It was very, very simple. You just download the app, fire it up, and it worked. You just have to allow GPS location. So very simple in that regards. Now, once you open that app, there is a slew of information broadcasted or shown to you on the app. I can now see why it's now nicknamed the Karen app. We're talking about its identification of the module, its location, the location of the operator. It shows you the altitude, the distance from you, and it can actually track where this module has been. So there is a lot more information on there, even the dBm or the strength of the Bluetooth module and how many times it's updated in the past second. Yes, every second it does measure how many times it broadcasts to your phones. So that drone scanner app is a nice resource if you want to see the status of your said module. Okay, so let's talk about the performance of the Easy ID module. Now, it did a pretty okay job throughout my testing, and as you saw, it did get the satellites pretty quickly, as I said before, between 30 and 45 seconds after the first or initial power up. Now, during my testing, I did compare the altitude and distance compared to my DJI drone, and the distances were off by a few hundred feet. Now, I don't know how you're gonna take that. That might be a blessing to you or be used to your advantage, meaning if someone is trying to look for you, they may not be able to find you, the operator, or your drone because it's off by a few hundred feet. But in the same sense, it could be damaging. Say, for example, you're following the rules to the letter, you're flying your drone at around 400 feet, and now it's showing that you're at an altitude of 600 feet. Well, that's not really good for you or your reputation, and that might actually garner the attention of the wrong people or maybe the FAA. Now, what evidence do you have to prove that you were following the rules? So I do suggest if you are going to fly maybe FPV drones or even a camera drone or even any kind of aircraft, maybe record your OSD, so in case you are incriminated or you want to prove that you were following the rules, you do have your OSD showing the appropriate altitude and distance. So in that sense, although it is quick to acquire satellites, I did notice that it was off by a few hundred feet. Now the cool thing about the Easy ID module is that it transmits via Bluetooth 4 and Bluetooth 5, which allows for further reception and quicker updates to your mobile device. Now I'm using an older Android phone here, and this does set to have Bluetooth 4 and Bluetooth 5. I also tested it with my iPad Pro, and we'll talk about those performance a little bit later. Now the cool thing about the drone scanner app is that it does show you both the Bluetooth 4 and Bluetooth 5 dBm and signal strength, as well as the amount of packets coming to your mobile device or your phone. Now with the data I've collected, it seems that I'm receiving approximately 1 message or 1 packet per second on my Android phone. That's not too bad, and that gives you good resolution as to where your module or your drone is while you're flying it. Now I had a little bit different experience on my iPad Pro. I was receiving more than 1 message or 1 packet per second, which is really, really good. I've also got higher dBm signals on my iPad Pro, so I do suspect the antenna or the Bluetooth antenna on my iPad Pro is significantly better than the one on my mobile device. Ironically though, this mobile device is good for Bluetooth 5, which is made or designed for further distances. So that's some interesting results with the Bluetooth 4 versus Bluetooth 5. With this information and trends in hand, I have to say that the signal of these modules drop off pretty significantly very fast. So these things are said to be good for a few kilometers or a few miles, and I have no doubt about that. In fact, when I was out there testing, I saw a DJI drone over a kilometer away. So these things do transmit pretty far, but from my data and testing, this thing drops off and degrades really fast, guys. We're talking about a few hundred feet. So I could be flying, and after 200 feet, the dBm goes down dramatically. I see less messages and less frequent messages coming to me. And then it says last message was sent maybe 2 seconds, 3 seconds, and the number keeps going up 4 seconds. I think the highest I saw was 26 seconds. And when I came back to the room and analyzed my data, I saw at one point it was up to maybe 40 seconds. So these things drop off pretty quickly and aggressively, guys. Now that could be to your advantage. Maybe you don't want people to know where you are, and people can find your drone and your location. But at the same time, that's not good for confidence if you want to really track your drones, or maybe a fleet of drones in your company, or if you're doing commercial work. Okay, so having seen the performance and experience of Remote ID, what do I think about this Easy ID module? Well, if you're the pilot that have no choice but to comply with this upcoming Remote ID rule, then in my opinion, this is the most versatile module on the market and a good choice. Is it the smallest module on the market? Not really, but those other smaller modules require an external antenna for the Bluetooth and an actual GPS connection. Does it have built-in battery? No. But those other modules with built-in battery comes in around 2 to 3 times the cost of this module, almost the price of your actual FPV drone. So, well, you can decide if that's cost-effective towards you. So in my opinion, at the time of filming, this is a good example of what a Remote ID module should look like and behave. And I do think that's true because the FAA did issue a declaration of compliance for this module. So if it's good for them, it should be good for you as well, right? We'll see. So let me know what you think about this Easy ID module. Do you think it's a pretty good performer? Are you gonna get one of these? Are you on the Remote ID train? Maybe, maybe not. Now, if you have any questions about Remote ID in general, leave them down below, and I'll get to those in a future video if there's a lot of interest or uproar about the Remote ID and Remote ID in general. This isn't the video for that, but I will address that if you have any questions and if you want to rant or vent about this controversial topic. It is controversial, honestly. Now, if you just want to avoid this Remote ID stuff altogether, I've built and reviewed some sub-250 drones that fly pretty darn well, guys. I'll leave those video links right here so you can take a look at it. So thanks for watching, and I will see you in the next video. Peace.